Hello, welcome back to the Double Duck Garage. This is video number 3 in Scotty's MGTF VVC series. This project has become known as Project Bangy McBangFace. If you're not sure why, then it's definitely worth going back and watching video number 1. That's me set up for another day fixing cars at the northern location of the Double Duck Garage, which happens to be my driveway. So during the last video I checked for the general condition of the inside of the engine using a Oscilloscope. I checked compression, timing and spark. So during this video I'm going to be looking at air and fuel. I've decided the first thing I want to do is take off the inlet manifold so that I can access the injectors. Several reasons for this. Firstly, fairly confident that I'm going to take the head off this and give it a good clean inside anyway, so this will be part of the general dismantling. Secondly, I want to see the spray pattern on the injectors. I want to see that they're all working. I want to see that they've all got a good spray pattern. Thirdly, I've just never seen injectors work before, so I want to put together some sort of test rig and I want to actually see them working with my own eyes. Quite used to putting these apart, so it hasn't taken very long at all to get to this stage. Right, so I have here the patented Bodgy McBodgeFace fuel injector Viewy thingy, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick this over the fuel injectors and then fire the injectors and have a look at the spray patterns. The first job is to pressurise the fuel system and make sure there's no leaks from any of the injectors. So that's an absolutely excellent start. I've pressurised the fuel system, none of the injectors are leaking. So what I'm going to do now is tentatively turn the engine over, fire the injectors and see what happens. Injector number 1. This one is injector number 2. This one is injector number 3. And lastly, injector number 4. So that video makes very interesting watching. I'm going to play it back in slow motion and tell me what you think. So to me it looks like each pair of injectors, and possibly all 4, but I can only video 2 at a time, are actually firing at the same time. I'm going to need to see what signal the ECU is sending to the injectors, so time to spend some money. Right, a package arrived this morning and inside it is my Oscilloscope. Right, I plugged it up and it does what it says on the box, supposedly, but I've never used it in anger, so now's the time. Before I even think about connecting a scope to the injectors, I need to understand what voltages I'm looking for. So I've done a little bit of reading. What I found is that there is a switch live to the injectors. So once the ignition key is on, there is always going to be a live to the injector. The actual turning the injector on and off is done by the ECU, and that is by making and breaking the earth circuit. One thing I have noticed is that the injectors stay live for quite a while after the ignition's been turned off. I suppose this is usual behaviour, at least I assume it is. I've got no idea why it does it, so if you do know, stick something in the comments below because I'd be really interested to see. And yeah, actually you can see it's just gone down to 0. And that is something like about 7 minutes after the ignition was turned off. For me, it's 3 days later. I had to order up some attenuators, did a little bit of research before I connected my nice shiny new scope in, and found that because the injectors have solenoids, they can actually produce a voltage of something like 300 volts, or maybe even up to 400. So I need 20 to 1 attenuators, which I've now got, and those are these things. Okay. So these basically mean that the scope that can deal with 20 volts can actually deal with 400. These are injectors number 2 and 4. So number 2 has the blue probe that is connected to channel A on my oscilloscope. Number 4 has the red probe that is connected to channel B on the oscilloscope. I've removed the fuel relay. Coils and spark plugs are disconnected, so I can safely turn the engine over and I can take a reading. We'll do a run through of the picoscope in a quacky video sometime soon. This is turning out to be a really interesting learning opportunity. You can see from the traces that these injectors are all firing at the same time. I've only got a 2-channel scope, but what I've done is I've done various pairs of injectors, and you can see 1 and 2, 1 and 3, 1 and 4 all firing at the same time. I now need to find out if this is some sort of normal behaviour. Is this an indication? Is it firing batch because there's a missing sensor input? Does it even fire batch until the engine's running? Anything like that? I really don't know. I need to go off, do a little bit more reading, and hopefully what I find will point me in the right direction for my next step.
I am currently on my way up to see Scotty. He's been doing some testing with his new oscilloscope. I'm going to take up the P-scan. I'm also going to take up my 4-channel oscilloscope just to see if we can get any extra information out of that. I will catch up with everybody when I get there, I guess. Hello.
Hello.
Afternoon.
Hey, fantastic.
Should have a new t-shirt. And I've got a load of other gear, oscilloscope, another one, and the P-scan, just so we can throw all the electronics at it. Right. See what we can get from that.
We have
a t-shirt.
A different design. Fantastic.
Different type of t-shirt.
Different type of t-shirt. Well,
that's good.
Yeah. T-shirt as opposed to polo shirt.
Polo shirt, yeah.
Really, isn't it? With fewer logos and looking really smart.
Bit of a work shirt.
Excellent.
I'm going to go
love it.
Out of the cup.
Okay. That's a neighbourhood gone down here. We'll let anybody in here.
Really right. Town.
So it'll be quite interesting for you to use your kit that you're familiar with and double check everything that I've done with my kit that I'm not familiar with.
Yeah, so this is a Rigol DS1054, which I tend to use in my electronics lab at home. Okay, so this is set to 2 volts per division. There are 4 divisions up and 4 divisions down, and then they're set to 20 milliseconds horizontal timescale. So I'm going to give this a whiz, see what it does.
Okay.
I'm not sure what that's doing.
This confirms what I was seeing with my scope, that all 4 injectors are firing at the same time.
Yeah.
And now the dark blue probe, which is the top line on the scope, has been swapped across to the camshaft position sensor. This looks like quite a healthy signal, and we can see that the injectors are firing 4 times for every rotation of the CMP sensor. We're using the P-scan now, and we can see both the crankshaft and camshaft position sensors synchronized. Now we're using the P-scan to check the crankshaft position sensor. And here we can see the width of the injector pulse reduces the longer the engine is cranked for. That explains why in the injector videos earlier we can see the strength of the fuel squirt varying. I finally managed to drain most of the fuel out of the tank. The fuel pump is out, and I'm now going to clean the inside of the tank thoroughly and just get all the dregs and everything out of the bottom, refill it, and I think I'll probably start putting it back together, testing each bit as I go, and then we'll see if when it's back together, if there's any way there's something I've done, something I've disturbed, resetting the electrics, disconnecting, reconnecting the ECU, if anything I've touched actually fixes it. So right, I shall get on with it. Okay. For whatever reason, the pump is sprung loaded, so you've got to push it down whilst trying to get that captive ring on, or whatever it's called. But yeah, got there in the end, so that's sorted. What I'm going to do now is get my air hose and blow through both of these pipes. I want to check that there's no blockages in there. If there is any detritus that's been sucked up from the bottom of the tank, I want to get all that cleared out as well. So basically what I'm looking to do is have a completely pristine fuel system end to end. Before the injectors go back into the car, I'm just going to give them a clean through with this stuff. I've bought a little kit from eBay that goes into there like that, and then that sits on top of that. The earth in position, and you can actually hear the injector working. Then I just need to touch the live connection to the battery whilst pushing down on the aerosol at the same time. Next job, I'm going to remove the fuel pressure regulator and try and test that. Right, that was simple enough. So what I now need to do is work out how to test this. So I've grabbed my vacuum pump, and I've also connected the fuel pressure regulator to an air source. The air source is going to be used in place of fuel, and the idea is that I will be able to apply and remove vacuum and turn on and off the flow of air. I can't get any air to flow through the regulator, which makes me think that petrol wouldn't flow through it either. I'm in the position where I'm not 100% certain what the situation is. Basically, my understanding is that fuel, when this is in the car, fuel should flow in there and come out there, or the other way around, not quite sure which direction. And that is obviously controlled by the vacuum from through this pipe, this connecting to the inlet manifold. So I've done this test before on the fuel regulator on my Dino Special, which has got a Z-Tech engine, and that worked perfectly, but the test has obviously failed this time. So the question is, firstly, is this a valid test for this particular design of regulator on this car? And secondly, does that mean I've got a faulty fuel regulator, which could then mean that there's too much fuel pressure and maybe the engine's over-fueling? So I'm not sure on this, but if you've got any views on this, stick some comments in below, be very much appreciated. Thank you. This is where the fuel pressure regulator fits into the fuel rail. It looks like the fuel's going to come into the outer of the pressure regulator and flow out through the middle. I've refitted enough so that the engine should run, and I've put several litres of fresh fuel in there. So what I'm going to do now is pressurise the fuel system, check for leaks, and then see if there's any chance that it will start. I'm not expecting anything I've done to make any difference, but you never know. With the possible exception of the fuel pressure regulator, I think the fuel system's good. So I think now is a good time just to see if it will run, and if not, I can start focusing elsewhere. That I did not expect. Wow. So well, So I've always said my troubleshooting skills aren't particularly brilliant. I was pretty sure that it was going to turn out to be something to do with ignition or timing. Turned out it was definitely something to do with the fuel system. Wow, it runs. Well, I'm well chuffed with that. So I think now it's a case of getting it all back together completely. I've pinched a couple of bits off it from the cooling system for the 135. There's one of the cooling system joints that is actually not available, or at least I've not been able to find it yet, so I'm going to have to sort that out. I think it'll probably end up getting some made up in aluminium or something anyway, and fit them to both cars. But for the time being, yeah, get this back together, give it a good going over, find out what it needs to get it through an MOT, see if it drives. It could have God knows how many problems. I think new cam belt is going to be a good idea. General service, definitely an oil change. That oil's a bit smelly. I think there might have been a bit of fuel in that oil, probably from cranking it over and it never running. Let's just give it a proper health check, clean it up, and see what sort of car it is. See if my belief that it's actually going to be a really nice little car for somebody comes to fruition or not. Anyway, for the time being, thank you very much for watching. There'll obviously be quite a lot more on this particular car in future videos, but for the time being, I think I'm going to sign off on a high and speak to you soon. Cheers, bye.